Alex Mercer. You killed my wife and my daughter. You turned me into this monster. Now you spread the virus. And you send your pets to kill me?
Hey guys, it's Bennett Ring here. I'm chatting to John O'Lynn, who is the producer on the Bloodtastic Prototype 2. Now, we want to hear about the new stuff. What have you done different to the last game?
Well, in looking at all the feedback from the last game, there's a lot of stuff we kept, stuff like the claws and the blade arms, all the powers that people love, but we've introduced a couple new ones just to keep that Bloodtastic action to, the Fantastic 11. And one of the ones that I really love is actually the Tendrils power. The reason it's so fantastic is because once the emergent properties of the physics take over, it looks different every single time. Sometimes you get cars strung up in the middle of the street, sometimes they're off to the side, sometimes people are ripped in half. It's crazy, it's just fantastic.
Speaking of feedback, what was the most negative feedback? Was there a common theme? There was one thing that people wanted you to fix?
There was a bunch of things, but I think the one area we've looked to really improve is just the overall graphic quality of the game. We had a lot of density in the first game, a lot of people walking the streets and a lot of cars driving down as well. This time around we've tried to keep all that, but rework it and so that the visual fidelity of the buildings and of the world itself is just jacked up as high as we can get it, so it looks like a fantastic game.
Have you improved at all the way buildings handle damage? In the last one, when you took out one of those viral bases, it's kind of changed into that ruined building. Is it a little bit more refined this time around?
Well, we've actually removed some of those building destruction sequences because we knew they weren't quite hitting the mark. So from that aspect, we've kind of taken that out of the game. But what we focus on really is just making sure that the action still supports what's going on in terms of the explosions, in terms of all the decals that are in place and all the crazy action and effects that go on. So all of those are going to be much better than they were in the first game.
And then the alert system. So you'd trigger something and then you'd run away for 3 minutes, cool off, then come back, trigger something, run away, wait for it to cool off. Have you refined that system at all this time around?
We've made it a lot more forgiving because, as you said, that wasn't really fun to do, where you kind of had to run away every 3 minutes. So this time around, we've kind of tuned it so that it's a little more obvious when you're going to trigger that alert, so that you're making a conscious decision, okay, now I'm going to trigger an alert. And when you're in alert, we've made it a lot easier to get out of alert as well. So you're not constantly running away. We want to keep you in the combat space. If you actively choose to be in combat, we've given you the tools to stay inside.
One of my favorite things in the first game was getting in a tank, driving down the street, crunching cars, splattering civilians. Have you got any new vehicles or moments like that are really going to stand out this time around?
Well, we've definitely kept all the vehicles we had in the first game. Like you said, people love just driving in a tank down the street and watching the mayhem ensue. And it's same with the helicopters as well. So we definitely kept all that in the game.
Now, the protagonist of Prototype 2, put him in a room with the electricity emo dude from Infamous 2. Who's going to win?
You know what? Who knows how that plays out? There's, I'm sure, a million different ways how that'll end. But now, Infamous came out, and I was really excited because I really enjoyed the first game, and then the second game looks like it's going to be really fantastic. And I think there's room for both games. It is slightly different in that they're more of a shooter, even though they've got some melee elements, and we really concentrated on our melee aspect. And so I hope there's room for both games. I'm really happy that they've done well, and hopefully we can do just as well.
With your melee system, have you made it more complex, a deeper combat system, or you've stuck with the first games?
Oh, that's a great question, Bennett. Actually, one of the things we wanted to do with the combat in Prototype 2 is bring the control back in the player's hands. In Prototype 1, while there was a lot of stuff happening and it was really exciting, it sometimes got a little too chaotic. You'd have 3 tanks shooting at you, you'd have 2 guys with rocket launches, you'd have a helicopter or 2 chasing you, all at the same time. It was just really chaotic. So this time around we want to slow it down ever so slightly, just so that you can actually read and react to the battle and what's going on around you. So
breathe occasionally.
Yeah, exactly. And some of the things we've introduced, like the tactical dodge, where you jump over the enemy, there's a little bit of a time slowdown so that you can just kind of take stock of the battlefield, take a look at and plan what your next move is going to be. And that tactical dodge always puts you in an advantageous position for a huge counterattack.
What the hell?
And final question, what's the most brutal move that you guys have in the game? What's the goriest, most disgusting thing that you can now do?
Probably the biobomb. I don't know if you've seen some stuff. So
I have, but our audience probably haven't, so explain this.
Sure. The biobomb is short for biological bomb. What Heller does is temporarily infects his target while he sits there and writhes in pain. And basically, it's a ticking time bomb. The virus is slowly taken over, and it explodes. And it explodes in gory fashion as we've come to be used to from Prototype.
That's quite sick.